Good evening, everybody. I'm Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center, and I want to welcome you tonight. Now, this evening, we're going to be talking about getting taller. And I'm sure that when so many of you heard what this title was going to be, it's like, oh, absolutely thrilled. How is it that I can get taller than I already am? Well, let me tell you, we're going to settle into that conversation in just a few minutes. In fact, as we talk about this, there is going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 different things that you're going to key in on in order to help yourself. Now, here's the thing. I know as we talk about this, and as you have those aha moments, you probably know somebody who's just like yourself. You probably know somebody who, is in that same situation that really should be hearing this same information. Well, I'm going to tell you, one of the greatest joys that we have is seeing, this information shared in your Facebook family. Because I recognize that, everybody, whether they're a chiropractic patient or not, whether they're here in Limerick or not, is capable of benefiting from hearing this information. So I'm going to ask you to make sure that you're doing your part. Making sure that you're sharing this information after you've left a comment on what your big takeaway was. And start by just simply liking it. Because we recognize that, in the moment, we don't know how far reaching sharing this information is going to be, but what we do know is that, well, nobody else can gain benefit from it if you're not doing your part. In fact, as I got to sit back and think about this particular topic, what came to mind was my grandma. Both my grandmothers were, let me think, all of about this tall. In fact, I can still remember looking at them over, when I was a youngster and uttering the words, "Grandma, are you getting shorter?" And it wasn't like a one-time conversation. It was a repeated conversation over the years because, I recognized, well, I know I'm getting taller, but I think they're getting shorter. Well, you probably have had that same experience. Or maybe it wasn't your grandmother, maybe it was a spouse. Maybe it was a sibling. Maybe it was somebody, a friend of yours, that you looked at them and it's like, oh my goodness, I know I'm not getting taller and I'm not getting shorter, but you seem to be shrinking. Well, let's understand. There's a reason for that. There is a reason for everything that we're seeing. Not only are chiropractic good for helping to obviously eliminate pains and discomfort, reducing stresses, but there's other benefits. And one of those benefits happens to be making you taller. Now, I'm just simply going to say this, that listen, as we talked about it, can chiropractic make you taller? Yes and no. Within each and every one of us is a blueprint of who we're supposed to be. And in turn, it's not until we mess it up that we end up shrinking down, just like you see this picture. The same person. But unfortunately, when you're utilizing a system in a way that it's not supposed to be, and damaging it, well, it's not going to perform up to 100%. It's not going to perform up to speed. And when we talk about the height of our body, absolutely we are going to lose inches over time if we're not maintaining our posture. Now, I have some patients out there. I mean, I love this conversation and this visual because, we have patients who ride horses. And if you've ever seen somebody up on a horse and they're riding, and they are well trained, they are going to be up, they're going to be sitting tall, they are going to look the part of a horseback rider. Then you might notice their counterpart, who isn't as well trained and isn't following the instructions of their trainer. And they get this turtle type appearance to them. They don't look as regal. They definitely don't look as tall when they're sitting in the saddle. And for many of you who have ridden in the past, I mean, you probably remember your instructors talking about posture. Well, let me tell you, posture is either gained or lost. And in turn, we have that ultimate responsibility to help ourselves make sure that we're maintaining that proper posture. Because whether we're talking about your posture from in front, which should be a nice straight line, or that posture from the side, which we should be seeing those nice gentle curves, they need to be maintained. And those inward curves, that inward straightness, we get to see on the outside. And just like you see in these pictures, hey, listen, one of those remarkable things is we get to use our posture as a window into our spine and our nervous system. And that's why as chiropractors, when we look at your posture, it is a key to understanding what's the next most right correction for your body. What's that thing that you need to work on? Oftentimes people think, I'm just stuck. I'm stuck the way I am. In fact, when you see these two different pictures, for each of these individuals, just recognize we're not stuck. Our body has that hope of being changed. And people say, well, you really can't change it. It's like, let's think about this. Because I'm pretty sure the orthodontist is going to tell you differently when it comes to the posture and the position of your teeth. That with this very same principle of time, frequency, and just intensity of work, you're capable of driving that structure from where it's at to where it needs to be. And just like a 3-year-old, you constantly remind it of the better choice, and drive it in that direction. Your chiropractic adjustment, along with the other tools, are those things that allow you to take responsibility, to take the power back over that bad posture and create that better posture, which allows your body to function so much better. Now, here's the thing. We can talk all night about what posture means and about how it is that you're able to create these changes. So we're just going to dig into some of these things that you need to be aware of, because everything is a choice. In fact, as you're looking at these pictures, maybe you're recognizing, I look like that, or my children are looking like that, and you're going to be asking the question, so what can I do? Because let me tell you, when we look at this posture of ours, it indicates and it tells us about weaknesses in our system and about areas that need to be addressed. When we look at this individual on the far side there, and you can see that X there, how their hips are sliding forward. See, sadly, we start with our posture and we work from our feet up, and sadly, because of everything our children come in contact with, the bad school chairs, the improper way of sitting, they very quickly destroy their posture from young ages. And as parents and as young adults, we wonder, well, how could we have gotten to this place? Well, it's because of our training. Here at the Limerick Chiropractic Center, we teach our children how to actually sit properly. A 3-step method by which they're capable of making sure that they're positioning themselves properly. It's all in the setup. But you know what? For many of us watching right now, that ship has already sailed. I mean, we've already had 12 years worth of what's called use and abuse, which is, those school years. So we've trained our body, and like anything else, because of gravity constantly pushing down on it, instead of being nice and tall, we start to shrink ourselves down, not being as tall as we're supposed to be. And yes, when you do slide your hips forward, unfortunately, you're going to have this sway back, this leaning back, and then rounding your shoulders. Well, this is never going to look as tall as when I'm standing up straight. In fact, that very severe condition, that chronic condition called anterior head carry, is one of those things that, literally destroys the body from the inside out. And these are just like cavities, just like cancers. They destroy the body without any signs and any signals until they've altered the structure within to the point where it's not capable of functioning at 100%. Now, at a later time, we're going to be talking about, the weakness in the muscles, how it creates weakness in certain muscle groups, whether it's the abs or between the shoulder blades and the rhomboids, how it actually strains the muscles in the back of your neck and in your low back because of the posture, the position that your body has to support. But even when you're looking at these two pictures, you can recognize how one person is just so much taller than the other. Yes, there's a reason why, you know what, as children we were told to sit up straight. It makes you taller. There are so many positive attributes that come with it. And do we shrink with age? I'm going to correct this. It's not age, it's time. See, because we have patients in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that know they haven't lost their height. No, they're not shrinking down. In fact, patients who are under chiropractic care, that come to chiropractic later on in life and they're having their spinal correction taken care of, they're getting taller with age and with time. But you know what? Just like I described, as we have these problems within our spine, those subluxations, those bones that are out of place, that cause our posture to shift, that cause the disc to wear down, the arthritis to develop. The problem is that occurs over time. And that's a choice. And we all recognize that, every single day we either choose to build the body up or we choose to bring it down. Now, there's really three reasons why we start to see shrinking. And for some of you that are watching, well, you're going to have your aha and your takeaway moments right about now. Because many of you think, well, we're just going to talk about the spine and how it can obviously be changed. That's part of it, but we're going to start down below there. We're going to go all the way down to our feet. See, the problem is that when the arches of the feet are broken down, well, it's going to cause us to start to have shifts and changes. Yeah, those bones at the base of your legs that make up your ankles, those things that we call feet, when they're not functioning properly, instead of having that nice high arch maintained, they start to drift down. Ladies, just like during pregnancy, just like with the relaxin hormone, as you go through menopause over that 10-year span of time, most of you are going to go through that. Well, guess what? As you have that estrogen and progesterone shift, that change, what ends up happening is, sadly, it loosens, it weakens the muscles. That's why older women go into those boat shoes. Now, the other reason why, unfortunately, when we have the weakness in the arches, well, it allows for our leg, our foot to roll in more. And as our knee drops in, as it starts to migrate more and more towards the center line, the problem is it drops our hip down and forward. That's starting that curvature, that bad posture. Your feet are the foundation of your spine. Your feet are that thing that, unfortunately, if in fact they're not set up properly, well, the system is at a disadvantage. The wonderful thing of using orthotics or inserts in your shoes allows us to restore that proper level of support there and allow the body to function better than it was. Now, there's another thing. It's called sarcopenia. Now, for some of you, this is going to be the very first time that you've ever heard of this terminology. So, let's understand one thing. Even though we're using an image of a man in this picture, this applies to ladies also. This is not gender specific, this is across the board. And I'm just going to tell you that, you know what, there is a point in time in life, if in fact we're not expanding our muscle tissue, that organ system, if we're not eliciting those hormones to allow the body, the muscle, to grow bigger, grow stronger, what ends up happening is, well, the muscles eventually shrink. They get weaker and weaker and weaker. And understand, yes, the muscles are there, to give us definition, size, and shape, also locomotion, but it supports the structure. How do we fight against gravity? We fight against gravity and the forces that are there to hold our body up by having these muscle groups contracting, functioning the way they're supposed to. The sad thing is that we have that muscle wasting. The problem is that we start giving into gravity. And listen, I don't care whether you believe in gravity or not. It doesn't matter to me. It's going to work every single day. It's at work all the time. God's given it to us to keep our feet firmly planted on this ground, so it's going to elicit that physical force on us whether we think it does or not. And whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, it doesn't matter. You need to be lifting weights. You need to be moving this body of yours to build strength. It is a daily fight in order to do it. And if we don't fight the good fight, then guess what happens? We end up like that image at the very end. And it's not a place that any of us choose to go. The other component that we must talk about is the fact that when we have these subluxations, when the bones are out of place, one of the worst things that happens is it stops the joints from moving properly. And in this case, listen, we could talk about the arthritis that it forms, but even more importantly, one of the things that occurs is the fact that it causes the disc not to have the proper nutrients pumped into it. See, the only way the disc can actually get nutrients pumped into it, what ends up happening is it slowly shrinks over time. Now, unlike your car tire that we get to go to Wawa, we get to pump it back up again, that's not the way our body works. See, and the sad thing is that it's slow, it's insidious, we don't even feel it. But as we start to thin the disc, and we have these subluxations throughout our spine, we get to start losing height over time. Now, in turn, when we look at these things, listen, these statistics, they are what they are. As guys, we can lose up to 1.5 inches of height by the time we're 70 years of age. Ladies, you can lose up to 2 inches of height because of how our body breaks down and decays. If we are not fighting that fight, if we're not actually doing our part. So most importantly, we need to stop the shrinkage. We need to stop this from continuing to move forward, because that's what nature wants to do. It wants to lead us into that state of decay and breakdown, and it's not okay. But this is where you have to choose. You have to choose regular exercise. You have to constantly be building your body up. And listen, I don't care what it is. I don't care whether you're a runner, whether you're lifting weights, whether you enjoy being on the bike. We need to regularly move this body of ours. There are good and better choices, and if we need to have a conversation about those, I encourage you, leave me a message in the comment section so that we could talk about what those better choices for your particular situation might be. You need to make sure that you're getting your vitamin D. You need to make sure that you're getting out there. It's a lot about how we feed and fuel our body. Yeah, we could talk about a lot of other nutrients, a lot of other things, but if we do that simple thing by getting up, getting out, it has an incredible effect on the bone structure and on these muscles in our system. We just need to make sure that we're doing our part, getting out on a regular basis. You also need to be practicing your proper posture. We're all the same. Absolutely none of us are perfect. And I'm going to tell you, we're all going to catch ourselves. We all have to have that reminder of what good and better is. We need to make sure that when we're standing up straight. We're contracting those rhomboids, we're holding our shoulders back, we're keeping our head up. How many times have you seen somebody and they are literally just walking around with their head down like this? See, the problem is that they've done it for so many years, they've gotten used to it, they have stopped noticing that they're even doing it. The sitting posture is exactly the same thing. We have to be mindful that we're sitting with our back up against the chair, that we're making sure that we're keeping our head up. As soon as we see and feel that our hips start sliding forward in the chair, just come to recognize the hips go forward, your head's got to go forward. It's a horrible, horrible position. And yet, this is one in which you're going to see your children doing as they're sitting there studying, as they're on their Chromebooks or their iPads or they're using their cell phones. They're doing these things and they are literally destroying their body. And it's up to us as parents to make sure that we are stopping that by creating that pause. By creating the situation where we're not only tracking and monitoring, but we're also creating that pause so that we can, well, course correct. Regular chiropractic care is also one of those things that's going to help to maintain your spine throughout your lifetime. This spine of ours, it's supposed to last 125 years without showing any signs of arthritis, without showing any signs of decay or breakdown. And let's just imagine, if we're doing our part and our body is functioning the way it's supposed to for 125 years, don't you think that you're going to be taller if we don't have the arthritis, we don't have the decay, we don't have that wearing down? But that requires us to keep it straight from behind, keep those normal curves in the spine from the side, and build our body up. We need to do our part. Now, I'm going to tell you, for many out there, there's going to be one or two things in this workshop, maybe even more. I'm going to encourage you. Limit your takeaways to one or two things. Because here's the thing. It's going to take 30 days in order for you to master and actually overcome some of these bad postures, some of these bad behaviors once you've started working on them. None of this stuff is easy. But the one thing I know is the hope that our body gives us. Our body gives us that hope in changing it. Our body gives us that hope in the fact that once it's where it's supposed to be, it's easy to maintain and keep in that position with those better choices. So as I said from the beginning, listen, I'm going to ask you to do three things. Like this video, make sure that you leave me a comment down below so that we can talk about some of the takeaways that you've had. And then thirdly, make sure that you're sharing this in your Facebook community. There is something there for everybody to benefit from. We only ask that you do your part. I'm Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center.